All right, hey traders, in this lesson, I'm going to be answering a question or a suggestion from the Discord from Baka Senpai. I hope I pronounced that correctly or even close to correctly. They asked if I can create a video breaking down how to prevent lower time frame plots from showing on higher time frames. And using the RSI Superstack indicator as an example, that indicator plots 3 different RSI values, the 15-minute, the 60-minute, and the 4-hour or 240-minute. And the question here is, if we're on the 15-minute time frame, can we make all 3 plots appear? However, if we switch to a higher time frame, like the 60-minute time frame, then can we make the 15-minute disappear and have only the 60 and 240-minute plots showing? So in other words, as we go up the time frames, we hide those lower time frame plots from drawing. Now, it's a very good question, a very interesting suggestion. It's actually not something I've ever done before, but I have some ideas on how we can achieve this. I've already written out some code, so I'll open up the indicator source code and explain what I've done to achieve this. First of all, if you're not familiar with the RSI Superstack indicator, you might want to go and watch that lesson because that is relevant to today's lesson. Obviously, I'm going to be building on that source base, the code to that indicator, to create today's solution. So there are multiple ways we could do this. One way is to just add a whole bunch of checkboxes here for each time frame. As you can see, there are a lot of them, but we could make it look nice and tidy using the inline parameter of our inputs, and we could have a whole bunch of checkboxes here, such as show time frame 1 equals input.bool, title equals, you could say like 5-minute chart, the default value is true, and the inline is time. If I copy this a few times and change these variable names, just as an example, this is one way that we could achieve this. It's not ideal, obviously, because there's so many different inputs here. If I save this and open up my settings menu, we'll now have all of our time frames sort of grouped together, and we could write some code to hide each time frame based on whether it's ticked or not. That is one way we could achieve this. But the way I'm going to show you today is a little bit more dynamic. It's not perfect. Nothing in Python when it comes to certain solutions is perfect, but this solution I'm about to show you is the best way I could personally think of to achieve this. So what I've done here is I've just added this block of code. And this block of code here checks if we should draw each indicator value based on the current time frame. So the way I'm achieving this is using the timeframe.period inbuilt variable. This timeframe.period returns the current resolution. So here, if you read this little tooltip that pops up here, sorry, that line's terrible, I'll get rid of it. You get the idea. It says for 60 minutes, this value will be 60. For daily, it will be D. For weekly, it will be W, and so on. You can use letters and numbers. Now that introduces an issue for this particular solution, but I'll get to that issue in a moment. For the most part, I doubt that many of you are trading on any time frame greater than the daily or weekly chart. And if you are trading on a high time frame like the daily or weekly or multiple daily chart, I doubt you're using an indicator like an RSI Superstack indicator that groups lower time frames into one. This is more of an intraday / swing trading approach to any kind of indicator. If you're merging multiple time frames, normally you're either a day trader or a swing trader. And so I'm going to approach this solution from that mentality. So what I've done here is I'm checking what the current time frame is, but I want that current time frame as a number, not a string. So the timeframe.period inbuilt variable, or built-in variable, you can see it says there type. The type is a simple string or text. Now that's not useful for what we want to do here, because we want to compare the current time frame to the time frames that the user selects here. And these are strings as well, because our input.timeframe also takes a string. So what I'm doing here is I'm converting the timeframe.period into a number. And then we can compare that number to these numbers, which I also convert into integers or numbers. So the first thing I do is I check, is the time frame equal to D? So are we on the daily chart? If so, then we set our current time frame to this number, 1440 minutes. If we are on any other time frame other than D, then this code will be executed. And if that other time frame is anything higher than a daily chart, so a 2-day chart, a weekly, monthly, and so on, this little code block here will not work because the toNumber, when it tries to convert a letter like D, or sorry, weekly would be a better example. If we're on the weekly chart, then this string.toNumber function will return NA because there is no numerical equivalent for W. You could obviously hard code these letters the same way I have here with the daily chart, returning 40 minutes. The problem with that, and the reason why I didn't bother doing that with this particular example, is because throughout the year, some weeks, well, technically you could actually add in weekly, but some months have inconsistent minutes per month. So probably not per week, but definitely per month. So if you wanted to, you could also add on is timeframe.period equal to weekly question mark, then pass in 40 times 7 for whatever this is in minutes per week. I'm not going to bother doing that today for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I doubt many people who would use this type of indicator would be trading this indicator on a weekly chart. So I'm going to leave that for now, but you could do that. But when it comes to months, there are some months in the year that don't have as many weeks as others, or don't have as many days, as others. And so, there's a 31-day month, 30-day month. So we can't assign a fixed number to the monthly chart or above. But that shouldn't matter for today's purposes. So what I'm doing here instead is I'm just converting the current time frame into a number, and then I have 3 filters here correlating to each time frame that we're using. And then all of these checks are just checking, is the current time frame as a number in minutes less than or equal to our time frame input number 1 as a number in minutes. So if I go to the 15-minute chart and lower this down, and I need to save my code here. Now you can see that we're having 3 different indicator values. The 15-minute time frame, the 1 hour, and the 4 hour are all drawing onto our chart. If I go down to the 5-minute time frame, they're all still drawing. But if I go up to even a 16-minute time frame, one of these will disappear. And if I go up to the hourly time frame, one of them has disappeared. Our second time frame is the hourly chart. So now if I go up to a 4-hour time frame, another one will disappear. So now we only have 1 indicator value drawing onto the chart. That's what these 3 checks here are doing. They're checking each time frame against our current time frame. And if the current time frame is less than or equal to the time frame input, then we are plotting NA instead of the RSI value for that corresponding time frame. And that's it. It's relatively simple to achieve this. As I mentioned, it's not perfect because there are some time frames that will break this. If I go out to a weekly time frame, nothing is drawing now. Our signals are still drawing, but we're not plotting the indicator values because the current time frame cannot be less than or equal to NA, which is what this will be returning on any other time frame above the daily chart. One thing I could add to fix that is just check or NA current time frame. And that way, if the current time frame is NA, if I save that code, we should be getting all 3 drawing back onto the chart now. There we go. Because our string.toNumber function is converting W into NA, and so we're on an invalid time frame in terms of this, how this code works. And so we just want to disregard this altogether and continue drawing those indicator values. But if we drop down to these lower time frames, those indicator values will start disappearing so long as our time filter conditions are not met. And that's it really for this solution. It's relatively simple. I'll leave the source code below for you to play around with. It should work on pretty much any indicator script or strategy script that works with multiple time frames, so long as those time frames are intraday. And now you could use these filters as you would any other filters as well if you wanted to do things like disregard those lower time frames if we're not currently on a higher time frame, for example. There's plenty of ways you could use these filters. But for now, I'll leave this lesson here. I hope you guys found it interesting and useful, and I'll speak with you in the next lesson. Good luck with your trading.